Welcome back. This is part of my series of videos about how to find a perfect story, whether you're telling it for the page, the stage, or the screen, and whether you're a screenwriter, filmmaker, novelist, business leader, public speaker, entrepreneur, or consultant. Regardless of the situation, this is how you go about either coming up with, creating, or originating from your imagination, or finding from your own experience a story that is going to have the greatest emotional impact on your readers and audience, that is going to change their lives in some way, that is going to impact them deeply, and that is going to serve to grow your business or make revenue for you or the studio or network or whatever. Now, in the first video, I talked about what I consider the 4 essential pillars of a great story. And using Wicked as an example, I talked about those 4 elements, which are character, desire, conflict, and transformation, and how you must have all 4 of those in any story you're considering using, or it's not going to be complete. So jettison the ones that don't have those, or add those elements to the story idea you're already considering. Now, in the next video, using Collateral as an example, I talked about desire, that the best place to start, in my opinion, in looking for a great story to tell of those 4 pillars is with desire. We'll talk about character in a future video and how you develop a great character for your story. But regardless who the character is that's going to become the hero of your story, you can't really call it a story. It's not really going to be a story unless the desire for that hero is there, unless there's some endpoint, some finish line that character wants to cross that will move the story forward, and especially give your audience or reader someone or something to root for in the story. So the previous video was actually a part 1, because I listed 4 critical elements that desire for the character should possess in order to make sure it's a story you might want to move forward with. So you want to add or recognize those elements to the thing. Well, then we stopped, and now it's sort of a part 2 of video 2, or it's video 3, whatever you want to see it, whatever way you want to call it. But this is going to continue that list and talk about the remaining elements of desire that are going to strengthen your story. So you're probably going to want to look at the previous video. You can click below and get a link to the video, or you can join my YouTube channel, and then you can see everything, including the first 3 in this series. So, beginning where we left off, we're now up to item 5. We're now going to talk about how the hero of your story must actively pursue their desire. Your characters can't simply sit around talking about how much they'd like to have money, success, health, or romance. They must take control of their lives and use every ounce of strength, courage, and intelligence they have to achieve that goal, whether it's to rob a bank, stop a serial killer, win the love of the prom queen, or simply in the business arena want to give a great speech, overcome some health situation, whatever. They have to actively go after that goal. Your hero can't simply observe other characters pursuing their goals. Otherwise, how is the audience or reader going to be able to root for your hero if it's someone who takes no action? By definition, a hero is a character whose pursuit of their desire defines the story and moves it to its conclusion. Now, honestly, I've read way too many screenplays where we wait for the hero of the story for the entire movie until she finally gets the courage to stand up to her mother, or leave her abusive husband, or go after the love of her life, or finally get on stage to sing, which she always dreamed of doing. Passive heroes are going to destroy interest and emotion in your story. Now, you can begin with a protagonist who's passive at the beginning. In fact, often that is the case. They're resistive to going after what they really want because of fear and being stuck in some place. But before too long, that character has to declare, I want this. And then they have to go after that desire. And item 6 in the list is that the hero, or the power of the hero's power, it must be within the hero's power to achieve the desire that she's going after. A hero can't just simply sit around waiting to be rescued in any sense of the word. If she's pursued by a killer or trapped in a mine shaft or being chased by dinosaurs, she can't wait helplessly for some superhero or the cavalry to arrive. For instance, in Collateral, Max tries to summon help initially, but Vincent blocks him from doing that at every turn. And so he has to become the master of his own fate. Max has to ultimately put his fate in his own hands, and that will lead to a showdown between the two characters. This is why very few successful movies are about elections, beauty pageants, or the Pillsbury Bake Off or whatever, because the outcome of those situations is determined by voters or judges, not by the one who's actually pursuing the prize. Now, I know that if you remember Miss Congeniality with Sandra Bullock, it was about a beauty pageant, but the hero that she played, her outer motivation, her visible goal was actually to stop the killer, not to be picked as the winner of the contest. Now, the biggest exception to this rule of not having their fate determined by someone else is in a courtroom drama, where a judge or a jury is ultimately going to decide the fate of the person the hero wants to help or get free. But in most of those legal dramas, movies like The Verdict or A Few Good Men or Runaway Jury, the verdict is always preceded by a scene where the hero confronts an antagonistic witness, or the one who's truly guilty, or the hero somehow manages to reveal a key piece of evidence or makes an impassioned plea to the jury that ultimately it's those things that are going to make the verdict itself a foregone conclusion. So think of the conflict or the famous scene between Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. You don't want to tell a story about a fictional hero or about yourself where you talk about how fortune simply smiled on you and some great treasure was simply dropped into your lap. First of all, that gives your audience nothing to inspire them. In fact, it has the opposite effect, because when you lucked into your success, the audience is going to latch on to what they already falsely believe, and that is that, well, that was great for you, you may have been lucky, but it will never happen for me. So it always has to be about how you, through your own effort, and achieved your destiny with whatever the goal was you pursued. Item number 8 on the list, your hero's desire must be resolved at the end of the story. It must be resolved at the climax. You can add an aftermath, some elements to show the new life your hero is living after the climax, but the desire must be resolved at that final finish line. Otherwise, if your reader and audience, especially if you're writing a screenplay, have spent like 2 hours or more rooting for your hero to achieve his goal, you can't just leave them hanging or expect your story to either advance your career or transform the audience if they don't get to experience the emotional high, or at least the emotional catharsis and resolution of knowing this is how what I've been rooting for and wanting to see was resolved. Number 9 on the list, your hero doesn't have to win at the end of the story. We want to be able to envision what it is they're going after, but they don't always have to succeed at getting that. It just has to be resolved. There are numerous examples of movies with tragic heroes who ultimately lack the emotional courage to cross the finish line, or misguided heroes who believe that greed or deceit or revenge or a grab for power or their own immorality were the right path to take to greatness or fulfillment, only to be left alone and unfulfilled at the end of the story. Now, it's hard for me to give specific examples of movie endings because, to me, giving away the end of a movie is a huge mortal sin. Same with novels or any story. But I want to give some examples, and I guess if you haven't ever seen The Godfather Part 1 and 2, Citizen Kane, or Brokeback Mountain, by now, you're probably never going to see them. Now, tragedies like those, tragedies where the hero fails through some weakness or lack of courage on their own, they're of value because they still let us experience our own humanity. And when we read or see or hear those speeches or stories, we can learn about the consequences of succumbing to temptation or taking the wrong path to get the desire or fulfillment we want. Now, another type of story that doesn't have what you call, doesn't result in the hero winning, are stories about heroes who realized that they were either going for the wrong goal and correct that and change to the right one, or they have found some higher calling in order to, that will be more fulfilling or serve humanity more, and they choose that instead of their original goal. Now, again, don't want to give away any endings, but if you haven't seen Casablanca, Stand By Me, or Up, regardless of what you think you might now know about the ending, you must see those movies, because you can't miss any of these movies that I consider great. They have to be in your lexicon. Now, when you're working in the business arena, I often talk about what I call failure stories and the value of telling stories where you failed to achieve a goal, especially if it's a desire or a problem that you faced that's similar to the audience's. And if you talk about how, well, you took a wrong turn or you took the wrong method and you weren't able to achieve that goal, then you can use it as a good, bad example and convey to your audience the idea that, well, just because I made that mistake, now you don't have to make that mistake. You don't have to go through all that pain and suffering I went through, because now I'm going to give you the right way to do it by following my process. I'm giving you a better way to achieve the goal you are pursuing that I did when I wanted to achieve that goal. And oftentimes that story is going to be followed by another one that shows how you found the right way and you did achieve that goal. So in conclusion, talking about desire and how you find a desire for your character, for your hero, that is going to have the greatest impact on your audience. In your film, in your fiction, or in your speaking or writing or consulting, the stories you tell about heroes pursuing their deepest desires can instill courage and humanity in your audiences and in your readers and in your followers. And like Max in Collateral, or like Elphaba in Wicked, that's the way you can inspire your audiences and followers to pursue their own greater destiny. So next time, when you come back, when we see each other again in the next video, now I'm going to move over and I'm going to talk about character, the next one of those 4 pillars, and how you find or develop the greatest characters in the stories you're considering pursuing. So I hope to see you then.